Would you ever on my cloud? Everything goes up on the cloud and then I can't get it back. I went for 3 hours trying to get it today and I couldn't get it.
I didn't get it on the way home.
Me neither.
Yeah, okay, alright. Yeah, I'll help you out.
I didn't eat.
You got pictures today?
Oh.
Three of us when she's in the either one went.
So we had the Air Force singing.
We do.
Up there at PAC today.
Yeah.
I got a game going on.
Right now. Well,
We did.
we're opening it up. I think it starts at 7:30. My husband's going for it.
I hear it's great.
Last time they had the, one of the other bands, Air Force or Army.
Yeah,
She had
great.
a really good meeting. I have three brothers from the Dean.
Oh, that's Amy and Mary. Sure. You know, when they went early, cause I just all ready and they got the dresses on, they did not wear them.
Two brothers, when they put them Air Force, my dad and then Army.
They got married at the Presbyterian church.
Okay.
Beautiful church.
We had a wedding last summer at the Presbyterian church.
Downtown?
Yeah. That's a beautiful church.
That is, so he's supposed to
It was just Monday that I started.
Asian.
Yeah.
Asian.
Is she from Creek?
Yes. Yep, she lives on Smith Road.
Thank you.
Is that Swartz Creek?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I think it's Argentine Township, but
Could be, yeah.
Oh, wow, she had a big bridal party.
yeah. And the girls. Girls she went to school with here forever, and the rest were college friends.
Well, Ken.
And her husband now, he was in the Army for 6 years. He's got like in the Army.
And apples and cider in the other room.
He did 2 tours in Iraq.
Okay, you ready?
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We have in front of us an agenda for this evening, and we will begin with Mr. Meinke, awards, recognitions, and celebrations.
Well, one of the things that's pretty exciting right now is we actually meet today. There's a large charter van or van bus outside in our parking lot with the Air Force Band. The Air Force Band is here to perform, so hopefully there's a good turnout here at our PAC. Speaking of bands, our Dragons Band had a dominating performance at the MSBOA conference on Tuesday in Goodrich. They scored overall a 1 score, which is the highest you can get. So very, very, very positive performance for them. Also something that's kind of neat that I thought would be worth sharing is Shannon Cumming from the high school took a busload of leadership students out to the Breslin Center, where they were able to collaborate with around 7,000 other high school student leaders from the state of Michigan, and they heard a keynote from Mike Smith, who's a motivational speaker, and they all went together and collaborated on ideas that they can bring back to the school. So I'm interested to see kind of how that went. That's it for me.
Okay, good. We have also a consent agenda, and I need a motion to approve.
Support.
Stacy, Brian, any comments or questions?
I do have a question. The resignation, is that a position that we will fill? Or is that just because of, certain students at that school, or?
That was that had to do with a person who was administering diabetic medication, and the needs for that position had not necessarily been there any longer. So she had been reassigned to other duties, but since she still held that title, so I do not believe we'll be refilling that unless there's a need to refill it. So if somebody were to come along with that. Ms. Mansfer, is that fairly accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, back to you, Ben. Superintendent's report.
All right, couple things. First thing that was kind of neat, and I could have said this in our celebrations as well, you heard a presentation a couple board meetings ago about the fire trailer, and you saw kind of what they were doing. He actually brought the fire trailer out to Deke Elementary School just about a week ago. All the students got to go through it. The teachers reported that they were absolutely blown away. So they'd never seen anything like it, and the teachers went through it as well. So I think that was just a real positive community thing that the fire department's doing. So really want to try and I know Mr. Engel brought that to us, and I think we need to really think about supporting that. And certainly they're out, and they're going to be going to all of our elementary schools this year, so they're on the schedule, which is really neat. Also wanted to share a little interesting thing that happened in our elementary schools. So out at Gaines Elementary, Mrs. Johnston started a Twitter challenge for teachers that were looking at specific indicators in our new instructional framework. So as you know, we've been working with the 5 dimensions of teaching and learning, and so very neat to see our teachers actually taking information from their classrooms, gathering that information, and then using it within their learning community and using Twitter as a means of learning. And so it caught on in a lot of our elementary schools. Actually, all of our elementary schools now are trying that out. So they take a week and they put an indicator from the instructional framework out there, and then they work through it and they kind of work together. So it's been kind of neat to see the elementary schools doing that, and maybe that will even spread into the secondary buildings. So kind of a neat thing that was just started this week. I wanted to, this isn't a very exhaustive update because you got one recently, but I wanted to allow Ms. Mansour to explain just kind of where we're at with the food service update and just kind of give you a real quick
I just wanted to let everyone know that we did put the RFP out. It will be advertised in the newspaper tomorrow per the requirements of the state law. So that will be put out tomorrow in the Flint Journal. And then we will have a mandatory pre-bid meeting prior to that. Anyone that's interested is allowed to get a copy of the RFP and fill out all the information and see what it is, what our specific requirements are. And then all proposals must be submitted by noon on Monday, November 13th. So we'll have everything at that point. So I'm working with Stacy and coordinating all of that. We have the list of all of the food service companies throughout the state of Michigan that the state has given us. We have to contact and let them know that we are in fact going out to bid for this. So we are getting all of that done, and we've been working with the state closely over the last couple of days. So that's our update.
Perfect. Thank you for all your help with that.
Thank you, Colleen.
And I also, we've had a lot of activity in our financial world, and so we've had, initially had planned to try and bring a budget amendment to this board meeting, but with the nature of everything that we've had going, we've decided to push that to our next board meeting. So at our next board meeting, you're going to hear from our auditors, and you're also going to hear from Stacy about our updated budget. So I wanted to give her a chance to kind of just update you on that, let you know where she's at in the process.
Yes, I've been working diligently on building the budget from scratch with all the staffing details, person by person. Rod got a little glimpse of it today while we were working on Title IIA. So I have every intention of having that ready for you guys to approve at the next board meeting. So, and I have all the backup and everything behind it. So there's data that supports your new budget that we'll get next couple weeks.
Thank you,
Thank
Stacy.
you. And I think
Will we receive a copy of the budget report in advance?
Yes, before the board meeting.
We're gonna get it at the
Next
higher meeting.
Okay.
yeah, and we're going to have 2 IR meetings this month because we pushed that one forward. So you'll do a report in just a little bit, Mr. Ahern, I think, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
The other thing, just to update you on November 7th at the PAC, I'll be doing a presentation for parents on the grading and reporting policies, from both the middle school and high school, just to kind of let everybody understand kind of what that is, you know, how to explain that and what that looks like. So hope to get people there that are obviously interested in that, and obviously anyone here is welcome to go as well.
What time did you say? I'm sorry.
6:15. Be 6:15 on November 7th.
On a very sincere note on that, I don't know at what point you include the teachers on that, but from a few parents I've spoke with, I'm not saying all the teachers, but there are teachers that have a difficult time explaining the grading process at the middle school to the parents. Because when they fall away from the 1, 2s, and 3s, they resort right back to the percentile, which takes you right back to a letter grade, which they don't get. So the parents are like, I don't understand this. Why are we doing this, but there's no... And I said, I don't know either. I says, because in theory, when you start a new chapter, everybody should be a 1. And when you get done with that chapter, you would hope that everybody's a 3.
Yeah, so
I said, I would think.
It's something that is different because it's not traditional in the strictest sense. But I will, I think maybe at an upcoming board meeting, I could maybe give even all of you here at the table kind of a preview to that, or an understanding of at least what I'm going to be presenting there.
Okay.
Just because I think it would be, you know, short and sweet, but give you an idea on what this is. And we are definitely, I think you're right on. I think we have a lot of work to do there. We are meeting with the teachers, actually, I believe, do you start tomorrow, meeting with the teachers, or are we moving that to Friday? Yeah, so on Friday, we're going to be meeting with them for a second round. We did a little bit of training with them in the spring, and we're going to continue to go back. But we're really focusing intensely on the middle school right now, because we know that we need to get that shored up before, you know, anything else kind of happens. So that's something that we're intensely working on and trying to get the teachers up to speed. So, but I think you're right, and I think that the communication needs to be there. So that's why we're going to try and do some things like this. I'm going to do this event, and probably we'll do another one later in the winter. Mr. Claren has done 7 parent meetings at this point to date already this fall, where he's just been inviting parents that would like to see it. He gets them on the grade book, he explains it, but you know, not everybody's able to come to those, and so we're just trying to get the word out as best we can. So it's a good point.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Any questions for Ben? All right, going on to our board subcommittee reports, we'll go in alphabetical order by committee, so that's academic achievement.
Okay. I gave everybody a sheet. Hopefully we can follow. There's no typos. Did I give you one? Okay. Kidding, sorry. Sorry, I didn't label it there. I'm just going to go along on my computer, and then if Rod has something to pipe in, I think I pretty much covered it all. But the first thing is the 3rd grade reading law, which ties into 5B. All K through 3 students must be assessed 3 times a year. All K through 3 students behind grade level must also be given an additional extensive reading assessment. And in 2017-2018, all districts shall be creating individualized reading plans for all K through 3 students who are deficient in reading. Provide notice to parents. They will provide notice to parents when K through 3 students are deficient in reading. And districts must provide evidence-based instructions, intervention, and progress monitoring. The 3rd grade clarifications are the E5 students do count as kindergartners. We have 30 days to use the screener for K through 3. Our screener is Dibbles. After a child has been identified on the screener, you have to use the diagnostic. Our diagnostic is the DRA2 assessment. It is from the diagnostic, not the screener, that your team decides if there's a reading deficiency. You have 30 days from the determination of a deficiency to agree to and create an IRIP, which is an individual reading plan. Communication with parents can be face-to-face, phone, or email. 3rd graders with deficiencies need reading booklets at home. K through 2 need tools and resources at home. Do you want me to keep going, or is there any questions on that?
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
The reading material that's sent home, or the tools that are sent home, does the school pay for those? Is it something or like a package or
The
something?
packet, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Mr. Heatherton take that one.
So the ISD has created packets already. So they have different sources of information. So if you're working on phonemic awareness, they have 2 or 3 pages on that. If you're looking at letter sound recognition, they have a couple pages on that. And in all, they hit all of the ideas of reading. So if you're that 3rd grader, you get the whole thing. If you're a K2, you may just get a piece on, you need to look at your phoneme, that kind of a thing.
Okay.
So how do we follow up to make sure the families got the documentation?
It's signed.
Oh,
It is signed and it
so
goes
if it's
in
not
your
signed, then maybe.
Ooh.
It's signed and it
Should've
goes in
added
your
that.
CS16. So it becomes part of the student record.
The next one was a classroom environment and culture, MTSS, use of physical environment. The vision on this is the physical arrangement of the room is conducive to student learning, which is like a meeting area, resources, and student seating. The teacher uses the physical space of the classroom to assess student understanding and support learning, where basically teachers need to be moving around the room to observe and confer with the students during the class hour. Students have access to resources in the physical environment to support learning and independence, libraries, materials, charts, and technology, etc. Classroom routines and rituals. The vision on this is classroom systems and routine facilitates student responsibilities, ownership, and independence. Available time is maximized in service of learning. Classroom culture. The vision on this is classroom discourse and interactions reflect high expectations and belief about all students' intellectual capabilities and create a culture of inclusivity and accountability for learning. Classroom norms encourage risk takers, collaboration, and respect for thinking. In our October early release student engagement is intellectual work. The vision on that is student classrooms work embodies I can't say the word.
Substantive?
Thank you. Intellectual engagement, reading, thinking, writing, problem solving, and meaning making. Students take ownership of their learning to develop tests and refine their thinking. Do you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Raise your hand. Engagement strategies. The vision in that is engagement strategies capitalize on and build upon the student's academic background, life experiences, culture, and language to support rigorous and culturally relevant learning. Engagement strategies encourage equitable and purposeful student participation and ensure that all students have access to and are expected to participate in learning. Talk, the vision of that is students' talk reflects discipline, specific habits of thinking and ways of communicating. Students' talk embodies and intellectual thinking. Okay, and then commitment to learning is how do I use learning routines to ensure students have collaborate discussions and empower them to commit to their learning. What structures are in place to hold students accountable for their learning, not just their work completion. And this falls under CREEK expectations. Committed to learn, respect others, everyone is responsible, everyone is safe, and kindness counts. Now I didn't add the other side of the vision. I don't know if you want to add on to that, or I didn't know if that was...
Well, we've been digging into the 5D rubric with the teachers, helping them unpack the different standards that are in there. Ben did a nice job at the September early release talking about how classroom culture fits into their classrooms, both with what they're already doing, with what we do with our MTSS, and what that looks like. And so they did a lot of talk with each other and taking a look at basically the standards and what that looks like as you progress deeper into those standards.
Areas that feed into classroom environment and culture, and that is a complete dimension in our instructional framework. And then we also have the 3 areas there: intellectual work, strategies, and talk, which is a part of our student engagement focus. And so to kind of try and make the most sense of it, these are vision statements, which essentially cast a vision for each classroom teacher on what that we hope happens in every single classroom. So what I did with the teachers on the first early release day was really dive into classroom environment and culture, and so we gave them examples and ideas of what that looks like in a classroom. Mr. Heatherton is actually this next week going to be presenting to the entire teaching staff on the student engagement dimension, so he'll be doing that for that. So it's an opportunity for our teachers to learn a little bit, which is tied directly to our school improvement plan, and then also ultimately their evaluation. So.
Excuse me, are you seeing a difference in instructional, the efficiency of the getting to the students? I know it's early still.
It's a great question. So it is early. I will say that there is a definite difference from what I've seen in the spring. I think, Rod could probably answer that better because he's been here slightly longer than I have. So what are your thoughts?
I think that there's a more purposeful and intention with, especially what we've covered so far. We really have had our deepest dive, into engagement or classroom culture. And so when you talk about learning routines, teachers are very cognizant of what routines they're doing. So kind of what Ben talked about at the beginning of the meeting, where they're capturing those and putting them out there for everyone to see. Mm-hmm. They're really taking a look at purposefully every single lesson. What is the routine or the protocol that I'm putting the kids through that's going to enhance their thinking around that particular topic? So, these are things that teachers do naturally in their repertoire of skills and tools, but by going through it deeper and unpacking the standards, you see some intentional, purposeful use of those routines on a daily basis. Everything from teaching, sometimes we expect that students know things, but we haven't taught them how to do them, right? So how do students, we say that you should talk to each other about this, turn and talk to each other about this, well, sometimes kids have not learned how to talk about content, and they've not learned how to think like a scientist. They've not learned how to think like a writer, and then how to articulate those thoughts. So this work in this particular dimension, like Rod's talking about, what you're seeing a lot more of is that the teachers are being more intentional about showing kids how to engage with each other and learn together. And so it's not just about putting content out there and saying, memorize these facts. It's teaching them the skills they're going to need to learn those things, and then hopefully they apply that as they go through school, and then when they leave us, they have more skills to be able to interact with things in the real world. So,
the collaborative.
Because we know when we all went to school, there were a lot of things that happened where it was just kind of you memorize things for a test, you moved on, and so this is a little bit, not a little bit, it's a ton more intentional on how do we make learning stick versus just you memorize something for a quiz, move on, next thing, and then you look back over the year and you're like, what did I really learn? And so I look back even at my own educational experience, and I experienced that, and I'm sure many people around this table did. So this is a paradigm shift for teachers, though, because it's very intentional in helping that they have to really unpack everything that they're doing and think about how am I helping our students really engage with this content and move to the next step.
And another question I have, are the teachers buying into it? Do they see the usefulness of it?
That I can say unequivocally yes, this particular piece, right? There's certain things that I would say maybe not as much, but this part, this instructional framework piece, what I think they're appreciating is that we've scaled back a lot of the stuff and we've really focused on this, so they don't have 10 or 15 things to focus on at one time. Right. It's culture and engagement. How do I engage kids, and how do I create an environment for them to learn? That's really our primary focus this year instructionally. Once we get, as a district, really solid at that, then the question becomes, okay, what is the data telling us, and where do we need to go next?
Right.
But that approach has been very well received by the staff.
And we also had 60 staff members in the full training, the full 6 days. 40 of those 60 were classroom teachers. So we had a lot of people from the get-go before we even rolled it out in the fall who already had a very deep training with the material, which is huge.
Yeah.
Didn't we say in academic achievement meeting too that it was more of the teachers getting up and engaging opposed to the lecture type of work too, like getting up, walking around, getting the kids more
Yeah.
engaged.
So
and
lecture
leaders
sometimes
too.
gets a bad name because there is an appropriate time where lecture is an appropriate strategy. But the research is that after about 15 minutes for just take a high school student, after about 15 minutes, they're not going to remember beyond that 15-minute chunk. So where we have lessons where day in and day out we're sitting there telling a story or talking for 35 minutes, we're losing a lot of instructional time that's not valuable. So yeah, we need to think about what other things are happening within those lesson segments to be more productive. Yep.
So how will you identify the best practices for the physical environment? Are there resources out there that say, in this age group, this type of environment works best? Or is it just trial and error based on, and it might be different from one year to the next based on the class?
Well, there's, it's laid out on the vision statements that, and kind of broken down, and then it's also progressed in the rubric. I don't know if that's what he's grabbing. But then, like, so for example, one of the things there is, well, what is your thinking routines? And so we went through and had them look through some thinking routines, and one of the books that came up was making thinking visible. And so, so early release is 2.5 hours. The hour was on the culture and environment, but then with their own staff, they also had an hour and a half, and they spent time diving into then specific resources that supported these strategies. And so they went online and they looked up and engaged in small groups what sorts of visible thinking strategies and protocols are out there. And then they came across this book, and so then we've been supplying a lot of people with the resources to help them.
The biggest support is going to come from the building principals, and their role in giving feedback is absolutely critical. So the shift is, instead of, and I'm going to use a slang term here, but instead of coming in once a year and watching a dog and pony show, I'm going to come in 6 times throughout the year and give intentional feedback. So that's a big shift for our principals, right? So they're instructional leaders, and they need to be in those classrooms working with those teachers intensely on that. And so they're giving feedback on some of these routines, for example, and they're saying, I really thought that 3-2-1 bridge routine that you did worked well for this situation. I wonder what would have happened if we tried this, right? Mm-hmm. So those are those conversations that happen ongoing throughout the year. That's not just a one-time, I came in once and I saw everybody, and I left. It's 6 times a year that they're doing this. So it's a lot more intentional.
And I think you mentioned academic achievement, that you'll have a process for people to share their successes across the district, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So if they have a best layout for a second grade classroom, they can share that with others. Or if they have, something like you just described that works really well.
Mm-hmm. All of our early releases are actually structured around going through this and giving them time to collaborate. So it's already laid out for the year that they're going to have a chance to work with material and then work with each other.
I think it's great when the principal's in the class as well too. Like Leon was like, "Oh, Mr. Clemens been in here today."
Yeah.
Each one of my classes, so then even the kids are like, "Oh."
Yep.
But they're in there and seeing them and
It's good to be visible.
wondering why. But you know what I mean? Just it keeps them a little bit.
Keeps them on their toes.
It does. It does.
Any other questions for Stacy or Rod? Okay, thank you, Stacy. Thanks, Rod. Ryan, Building Insight. Thank you.
We met October 2nd, Monday. We've got 3 administrators now trying to scramble to get these jobs done, but I think they're doing an excellent job from what it's looking like. The first project on the updates, the beams that were placed out here in the along the roadway, the access roadway to the PAC, they are completely painted. That's all done. We discussed briefly a reflectorized tape, and are we going to keep the cable for the gate entries, or are we going to go with the gate system? Discussion. There was no determination made on those. High school foyer entry there by the gymnasium, the logo and the painting's complete. I guess that was quite an experience to watch them hanging the logo. C, the middle school stairway near the pool area, and I know this is it's basically the girls' side, but it sounds like both sides are going to be needing the work where the steel's actually rusting away.
Yeah, we apparently found out this past week after the meeting that the other side had actually been refurbished and updated prior, and not too long ago. So I think that side will be okay.
Okay.
So the contractor was in there, I believe, today, and he'll finish up this week with the steel portion, and then we'll be able to fill back in with the concrete and the floor on top.
And the contractor, that's Mr. Morgan? That's,
Yes.
yes. Okay. Good. Does he have an idea when he'll be complete with that project?
He is not going to complete the entire project. He's doing the steel and then the concrete work, and then the next part comes from the flooring company, who had already been contracted and has the material. They're just waiting to come out and install it.
Okay. D, the salt shed maintenance building has it needs some repair. Press box, the floor is soft. Nobody's fallen through yet, from what I understand. But we need to get some estimates for the repair on that. Lock sets, they're almost complete. Hopefully we met last week, so hopefully are they completed this week, the lock sets?
I have not got a report from Travis yet, so I'll have to find out.
But it sounds like Travis is tracking the repairs and keeping the inventory process.
He's doing a great job. He's taken over a lot of the tracking of the actual job IDs, so they put them into the system, and he's tracking the tickets and assigning the jobs. So
right,
great.
Painting the fence, removing the barbed wire from the fencing over here by the buses, and powder coating the fence, the fabric itself. And that was going to be black.
Yeah, and I did get a contractor to give me an estimate on that, and so looks like from the initial estimate I got, I'm going to have to go get a couple other quotes. So we'll have to seek out some additional quotes on that.
Okay. Patching parking lots, there's some patching left to be completed, and also there was a short discussion about speed bumps being repaired. The PAC, the entry solution ideas. Is there a question?
I just was talking about the speed bumps are in the middle school drive there,
right,
in that parking lot.
On the south side, right?
Yeah.
The PAC entry solution, there's an area where there's no grass actually, it's just barren ground, and we're looking to maybe create a sidewalk, a seating area. Short discussion about that. The dragon statue, we've got some quotes and some discussions on that, but it looks like that's going to be an ongoing process to find the right one for the right price and how we're going to pay for it. The Mary Crable Fire Alarm Solutions, we did get a cost figure on that, but there's fire code updates, and at the time of the meeting we were looking to get estimates. Weight room equipment progress, you talked with Mr. Newman, and it was looking like if we really wanted to complete it correctly, that maybe it would cost about $10,000 for the.
Yep. And that would be for equipment that is commercial. It's hammer strength sidebacks. That's equipment that's been used. So probably about 25 cents on the dollar. So I feel like that's our best avenue to go down that road versus, we don't have the available funds to go with new equipment. So
yes.
That's an ongoing conversation. There's a big warehouse, and so we have to see what we need and what we're able to get in there.
Because of the price on that, because of the good prices given, do we still have to get two other quotes?
Because it's below $12,000. The answer is no, we don't. We still need to have a quote and an invoice. Okay. So I need to have that so that I can work from that. We have to have that in anything, but if it were $12,000, then yes, I would need to go and do that.
But I also think if you did get a quote with this,
it'd be well over.
Oh yeah, it would
probably be about 4 times.
Yes,
so
for new.
For new, And sometimes the difference here is that when people are selling used weight equipment, a lot of times they're selling the treadmill or something that they got at Costco, and that's really not what we need something that's going to be durable, that will hold up, through, things that you would find at a commercial gym.
And then number 6, so maintenance and transportation staffing. We had some discussion on that, and we've realized that Travis is actually taking on a lot more. Well, all 3 of you are taking on a lot more responsibility, and of course, Travis is doing, I guess, a wonderful job with the computer tracking, maintenance systems, and process, and the efficiency of it. Any other questions?
No, but I just have a comment. The news was on our way out, and Chad from GISD was on there advertising for bus drivers and that they are willing to train them. So there's a big interview of him. And
Yeah. You want to share something about that?
Sure. Next week, the GISD has scheduled a bus driver expo there, so a job expo to have at the GISD, and they've been advertising it on TV. I know Chad was on, but they also had some other advertisements. So we are going to go on Tuesday. We have a table, a booth set up that we're going to go, and we have some lanyards. We're going to bring some of our Swartz Creek items. We're going to do a little drawing so we can get some individuals' names. So we will take our applications there for any people that are interested, and we'll get a list of all the names of the individuals who have attended as well. So we look forward to that being a positive event.
now this thought just came to my mind. Do most of the schools in our area, are their schedules pretty close to ours where a driver couldn't drive for both?
Yes,
They wouldn't
they are.
work. It's
And
either one or
typically,
none.
yeah, if you think about a bus driver, typically they come in the morning, they go back home for a little bit, they come. So typically you get your bus drivers from the area in which they live, which makes sense, which is the area where we live, where it's close enough. It would be hard. I know it takes me 25 minutes to get home, so if I were to come here and drive back home and come back again and drive back home again, it wouldn't be real feasible for someone to do that. So that's why our community, drawing from our community members, is so important.
One of the ideas that I know Colleen has had, as we've talked about, is to try and, if we have good people, try and fill that middle of the day gap, if there's an aid position or something else that they can do, so that we're really piecing together multiple jobs so that we get, it's more attractive to somebody if we can give them more work.
Exactly.
And so we're trying to do that, and I know that's part of Colleen's strategy in this too, is to look to try and find ways that we can attract people, and those are some of those things, because we know that we have a high turnover rate with some of our educational aides, and so if we can find ways to piece something together, that'll help, somebody versus only getting 6 hours, in a particular day. So.
Is that something that you can share at the expo, that there might be other opportunities in case somebody's looking for
Absolutely.
more close to a full-time
Right,
position?
so there'll be 3 of us that are attending, so we'll be able to man the tables and be able to talk to the individuals that come. So we look forward to a good event.
Thank you.
Without a yes/no answer, because are we wage competitive with people in the area?
We are.
We are.
We are.
That's not what I'm told, but okay.
One of the, it's a little bit of a complex question because there's so many different bargaining units. So I would say if you look at the median range, we're probably competitive. But certainly if you look at a driver from, say, what did you say?
Flushing.
Flushing,
Yeah.
I believe they're higher, so it's definitely something that we want to always look at. But
Well, that's what I'm asking is when you're going to the job market, if you've got people that are in this general area, where are you at being competitive?
Well, one of the issues with bus drivers is they're paid differently than other individuals. Sometimes bus drivers are paid by their route, sometimes they're paid by the hour. So again, it depends on what the bargaining agreement is like. So someone from Flushing, for instance, could be paid by the hour. We may pay our bus drivers by the route that they're in. So we have some different breakdowns throughout the county on ways that that's happening. So.
And I understand that. I'm just
to be competitive.
I guess I'll answer my own question, so that's fine.
Thank you, Colleen. Okay,
Bring back my answer.
any other questions for Brian? All right, Mike, you're up with IART.
Okay.
Oh, wait. I have one more question for you, Brian.
Yeah.
What were the numbers on the fire alarm stuff, or fire, what,
Well, at the time of the meeting, we didn't have those numbers.
I don't,
We've
but you
got-
said you had the numbers.
I think we have them.
No, we didn't have the numbers at the time of the meeting, but we got our first quote yesterday.
Okay.
So, and it's gonna be something that before we go and continue to get quotes, when we go for that particular system, that's gotta be an RFP, a sealed bid process.
Okay.
Cause the first quote we got was significantly over the state
So
threshold.
it's over 25 grand.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And so they'll have to,
That's fine.
the first quote came in, and again, it's just one quote, but it came in at $68,000. So they'll need to basically push the pause button and say, okay, when we go to do this, it's gotta go through the entire state repository. So then you'll get to see whoever puts in for it. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we met on Monday. The rotating board member was Tony Paul. We reviewed the check register from August 17th to September 21st. For the general fund, that was numbers 26, 23, 51 to 26, 25, 68. Building and site, there were 211, 250, and 252. For CDC, 68, 74, and 68, 75. There was a checking amount of $374,958. This was to the Genesee County Treasurer's Office. That is a tax tribunal settlement for the 15-16 year, and it was for the property taxes at Genesee Valley Mall. There was a check that in part was for $950 for landscaping at the cage and the pack field. The invoice was lacking a date, hours worked, and rate of pay, and this is being corrected with the vendor, and his contract is going to be reviewed by Stacy. There was a check in amount of $1,100 for taxi transportation in March. This being a late check, the attendance verification is being checked with the building where the students attend. There was a check in amount of $4,007 for fertilizer and herbicide, and that invoice also was lacking the date and hours and rate of pay, and that's being reviewed. Both the bank check reconciliation report and the year-to-date budget status, due to all the work that Stacy's involved in and she's backed up, will be reported at the next meeting. The only bid we had out at the time was a food service RFP, which Colleen has told us apparently some of it has come back from the state. We had a discussion on the board asset management accounting system, and Travis attended this portion of the meeting, and we reviewed the bylaws, the accounting system for fixed assets, disposition of surplus property, and property inventory, which you have a copy of with my notes there. Travis does have an inventory system that he uses for the computers, and inventory is conducted at the close of the school year. We're recommending that the board, that we look over our accounting system policy, and that it be further reviewed and updated. One example of the updating is that the fixed asset criteria is set at $1,000, and it should probably be set at about $5,000. We adjourned at 3:20 p.m. The next meeting is the 23rd. Any questions?
Yes, I do. On the inventory system, would we have an inventory, a real accurate and detailed inventory for the PAC all the fine, like a microphone, $500 microphones, how many, $80 cords, but the specific speaker cords, input cords, would we have something that would have all that detail in it?
I can't speak intelligently about that, so I won't. But I would venture to guess that we do not have that for every single piece of equipment that we have. What Mr. Ahern was also speaking about was Travis has a very good inventory on any of our technology resources. That we can get down to the person. It's serial number. We have all that. But some of the other areas may be a little lacking, which I think is what's bringing this conversation forward. Do we need to look at, I think you had said you'd looked at you'd heard about a system that was relatively inexpensive.
Right, Marilyn mentioned it.
Okay.
Yeah, Marilyn and Travis were talking about it.
Yeah. To look at some of those other things. And then the other piece is that SetSeg, who's our insurance company, they do an asset, inventory every year. And what they do is they look at any asset that we have that's a fixed asset that's $5,000 or more in value, and they actually inventory that because they need that for in case there was a loss. So the issue that we have is that our policy is calling for 1,000, but our inventory asset requirement is they are only actually going to 5,000. So that's part of a future conversation about policy to kind of bring that in line.
So what happens when an employee who has an iPad or some kind of technology leaves the district? Is that part of the process of turning in all their equipment?
Yes.
And then Travis would account for that being back in the district?
We take care of passes, keys, credit card, whatever they may have. So we always get that before their last day of work.
And they actually don't get that last paycheck till we have all that stuff. So
That's an incentive.
yeah, it's an incentive.
Any other questions for Mike?
I guess I have one to add on to Brian's. So, is what you said, does SetSig take care of the lighting and all those things that are, when you talk about an $80 cord, I can vision somebody walking in for something and unintentionally just roll up a cord with their stuff and take it home.
It's happened.
I don't, because of the $1,000 threshold, I don't think there's, unless you go back in the purchase orders, I don't think there's going to be any inventory on it. I don't think.
Is
Because
there
it doesn't.
To answer your question, I don't believe that there's a great system for that. Now, I could be wrong, and maybe they over there have, every single thing. There are certain things that I've seen that I know they have. For example, the microphones that are fair. I think they're probably $500 or $600 a piece. That they come over your ear. They have those under lock and key. They have them numbered. They know how many they have and where they go. But as far as cords and things like that I am not aware of that.
Have we routinely videotaped what the inside of that building looks like? I think that's your best insurance.
Yeah, the cameras that can track that back for sure. That's a good point.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Thanks, Tony. Okay. And Stacy. Thank you. All right, going on. We have informational items this evening. There were no questions for Ben to answer or respond to from the last meeting. And you have under B, the employment of non-certified staff for your information. Also, the Schedule B employment is listed for your information. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, we can go on to number 8, board discussion items, the superintendent evaluation training, which we have scheduled later this month.
Yeah, so this is more informational. I just wanted to make sure I'll bring the first A and B kind of together here. We have some upcoming meetings, and I wanted to just make sure we were all on the same page that we were going to be meeting here on October 23rd. Okay. So October 23rd, we have our superintendent evaluation training. So it'll be myself and the 7 of you, and Collins and Blaha will be coming in. So what I would just like, if you could just email Joan if you do not have the materials that I gave you at the board meeting when I went over the superintendent evaluation framework, because if you don't, that's okay, we'll get you other ones printed, but I just would like to have those for you. And maybe even have them for you in advance of this day so you can just refresh your memory. I think it will help us if I've looked them over a few times. I think it would be helpful if we kind of have that fresh on our mind when we go into that. So just email her and let her know. We did schedule that based on the dates that we came up with at our last board meeting, so I hope that works for everybody.
What time again was that?
6 o'clock, Joan?
6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock. The other piece is we have several upcoming board meetings. October 25th, that's going to be a very important meeting for the financial end of things. We're going to have our audit. We're also going to have our updated budget. On November 8th, there are several things that we have to do on that meeting, one of which is I'm actually going to add a little bit of information there on our grading and reporting policies so that we can talk about that. At this time, there's nothing pressing for the agenda for November 22nd. So what I wanted to do is just have a conversation to see if that's something that you would like to, at this time, cancel that meeting, or if you'd still like to meet on November 22nd. I do believe we'll be okay.
Are we canceling the one of the week of our conference?
Yeah. If you want to cancel on the week of the conference,
We're
if you want to
canceling
do
that
that.
one, I thought. That
Do you know
is-
the date?
Mhm,
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
It's Wednesday the 8th.
I thought we were just gonna move that to Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, see, there's so
Oh,
much
we
change.
can, that's
That's
training.
election day.
Okay.
Oh, and that's just training too for the.
So maybe what we need to do is look at the November calendar,
Yeah, I got my book too, so.
because you have your MSB
Right.
conference that.
And honestly, I actually, yeah, if we can cancel that, that'd be great, because I thought we had talked about maybe doing that, and
We did.
I booked
22nd
a
is the day
client for
before
that night
Thanksgiving.
late, so then I'll leave it after that, after work.
So we could have
Can be
dinner.
moved.
Dress up like
22nd,
Tony
day before Thanksgiving.
and offend somebody. Sure.
So, my recommendation would be
We
that
moved
we
it to
have
the
have the meeting on November 6th. We have academic achievement and building and site that night anyway. So if we just went at 7 o'clock and had a board meeting that night.
And what's
See-
going on during the day of that date?
On November 6th.
I-
I
I'm not
brought
sure.
my calendar last meeting and not this meeting.
I have it in my book that we erased it on the 8th, and that we put it for the 15th and the 29th, because the week of the 22nd is Thanksgiving.
Can't go on the 15th.
Okay. I don't know why I have
Everybody's
that
gonna
here.
kill Bambi on the
Yes,
15th.
it's opening day.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
deer
was trying
hunt.
to forget about that. You're right.
So just for convenience sake, November 6th, we already have 2 committee meetings scheduled,
Mhm.
and I scheduled.
I'm
Yeah,
okay.
the committee meeting is 5
It
o'clock
is
and
5
6
o'clock.
o'clock p.m.
Yeah, so I'm off.
No
that day.
special rules for me that day.
So we're looking at
Monday morning.
the 7
No,
o'clock
that's
meeting?
special for me.
On November 6th.
Well, we have a 5 o'clock academic achievement and a 6 o'clock building and site. So if you
Mhm.
went at 7 o'clock, those, for several of us anyway, you'd be there. I don't know.
It works for me. I don't know about anybody else.
I don't care.
That'd be fine.
So November 6th.
November 6th, if that works.
At 7?
So that's our only meeting in November.
That would be the meeting for November, and then we would have our next meeting in December, the first week in December.
So I'm taking off. And let me get it right, because I showed up for the meeting on the 23rd this week, so I can't keep it straight. So the 15th I'm taking off. That's
Correct.
not, no more.
Correct.
And the
Correct.
29th, is that on? November, or we're not doing?
No.
We go then to December.
Yes.
Make sure you don't have one on the 22nd of November, is what Ben's saying.
No, I don't.
We can, but
No, I don't have that. And then we're gonna go to the 6th, and then I have one down on the 13th of December.
yes, that's accurate.
But we're gonna do it on the 6th too?
November 6th.
November 6th.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
Yep,
Never mind. I'm sorry.
November 6th.
And Joan will probably confirm this through email.
I hope so.
Yes, she will.
That would leave
And
us
she's not
with
confused.
Wednesday,
Just make sure you keep it out of the cloud.
that would leave us with Wednesday, October 25th, Monday, November 6th, eliminate November 22nd, and then Wednesday, 12/13, December 13th.
12/13, we will be talking about at our next meeting. I'll give you a heads up, but that will be the time where we'll need to
Let's-
complete the superintendent's evaluation as well.
Let's dump that meeting in November, Because, I mean, we don't know,
I'm confused.
well, instead of dumping that meeting now for November, whatever it is, let's dump it November 6th.
Don't have it?
No, leave everything as it is.
Sorry.
On November the 6th, if we want to cancel that meeting November 22nd, let's cancel it then. Because then we've led up to it, and we don't
We
have
won't
anything
have it on the
pending.
22nd.
We did.
We
That's what I'm
did.
saying, not
Okay,
cancel
I
it
have
until the
nothing.
20
I'm so
until the 6th.
confused. You better
So
send
you're
it.
saying keep the 22nd until...
Just for
Until
now,
the
yeah.
6th.
I mean, why,
Oh, I see. 'cause
what
you
difference
did
does
it
it
on the
make,
6th.
what difference does it make whether we cancel it tonight or we cancel it November the 6th?
I don't
Makes no
think that
difference.
I wouldn't be here only because of doing hair. Like, I've got to get everybody in.
That's fine.
Like, I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so.
So we can
That's
talk
so
about it
not
on
okay.
November 6th. is what
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
saying. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
I'm
sorry
not
if
objecting
I-
to cancel it, I'm just saying, let's wait. I mean, God only knows, we didn't
People
see
need their hair done for turkey.
6 weeks ago what come up
Mhm.
6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Why cancel it?
Okay.
Cancel it then. I care less, but I mean,
Okay.
So the only other thing that I'll just make you aware of, Mr. Ahern brought up a policy about our fixed assets, so I'm going to be working with Neola to get some language on that. There's also a new release that we need to start going into that deals with grant funding. So Stacy and I are going to talk about this, and we'll start preparing some information for you. But that'll start, we'll try and start trickling those in as little bites instead of trying to do it all at once. So we'll try and package those policies around the financial pieces together.
Okay.
That's it for me. The only thing we need, I just, for 10A, basically just affirmatively that we're gonna move the November 8th meeting to November 6th.
Okay. We don't need to vote.
Okay.
I don't think.
no, we can all agree.
We're in
No.
agreement. Does anybody object to that?
Everyone seemed to nod yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So Joan, do you have that info then?
What's that?
November 6th.
We're gonna have 3 meetings in
Yes.
November, Joan.
6/15.
I've got it.
You got all
Okay.
3? Okay.
3 of them? I'm so confused.
So, on November 6th, there's a 5 o'clock academic achievement, 6 o'clock building and site, 7 o'clock board meeting.
That's your 3. You got me, didn't you? Good job. Good job. Oh my God.
On November 5th,
I'll
right?
chat with you after.
November 5th, right?
Okay, yeah,
So I got
so.
it. Right,
what
no,
about the
no, not the
hair
5th.
takeover?
Stop it, you guys. Oh gosh. It doesn't take much. Really.
Hey,
Your public
it's
comment?
amusing.
It is, I'm quite amusing.
Carrie, so does Ken. Ken is
I have a
different than
different
everyone.
Help me out there,
Yeah, yours is
people.
different.
What?
Their agenda's,
I don't know why.
Okay, so,
Oh.
moving on.
I don't know, I just got what they gave me.
We have board action items. We already decided we are going to change our November 6th meeting, and we will talk about the November 22nd when we come back
See how you do it.
to November. Public comments. Anybody who'd like to address the board, please stand, state your name, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. I don't see anyone.
Right, that's what I just
All
said.
right, moving on. We have comments and questions from the board. Anyone?
I'm confused now.
You're gonna have the same.
I got last month's agenda.
Yeah.
Stacy put that there to confuse.
Stacy did
She
that?
got you back.
She didn't even know it, did she?
All right, so I don't hear any comments.
I did have one comment. And I guess this is directed to you, Ben, is if someone's gonna take the time to train bus drivers, and we're gonna take the time to try to recruit them, let's find out what the west side of this county and maybe the east side of Shiawassee County pays so that we can at least be competitive, or we're gonna continue to have people. I'm pretty sure we can keep up with First Student, because they don't make much. But the two districts that are nearest that I hear pay more than us are Durand and Flushing.
Okay.
And I really don't care if they do or they don't, but if we're gonna try to do this, we might as well be competitive in doing so. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep doing the same thing we're doing, which is the definition of insanity.
We can get those pay rates. Take a
Maybe
look
we
at
can offer breakfast or lunch between the,
Yeah, the kids throw some away, they can just give them that. Not the throw away, but instead of throwing it away. Not, no.
it. Yeah, I can get those.
No dumpster driving, instead of throwing it away. That ain't
How do
come
you
out
know
right.
about that? Anybody else? Anything else? I just want to thank all of our administrators for all the hard work that you put into this district, including you, Ben.
Thank you.
And for all that you do for our students. So thank you so much. You don't get enough of that. All right, now we have the need to go into closed session for the purpose of considering a complaint against an employee and considering the purchase of property. I do need a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Mike, Tony, any comments or questions? No. Hearing none. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education go into closed session under Section 8A of the Open Meetings Act to consider the complaint or charges brought against an employee, and under 8D of the Open Meetings Act to consider the purchase or lease of real property. Joan, could you take a roll call, please?
Yes. Lorraine?
yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Stacy? Yes. Tony?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Okay, we will go into closed session and be back in 7 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna need to go to the bathroom. Ben, McKenna doesn't wanna go home, so she's gonna come here.
Sure.
But she's gonna,
Do that right now.
first she said she needs to do her homework, just have Brian,
Yeah.
okay,
Perfect.
because she knows she can't come in.
That is so weird. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you, you too.
Yeah, they were
Dude.
7 and 2.
Dude.
Doesn't matter, they made playoffs.
I like this one.
That was just a handful of years ago.
You were blind school finally make one.
But he found the 8th one. No.
I like this one.
Anytime you want, back.
Okay.
What'd you do?
All right, we're ready to go.
Okay, so we are back in session at 9:50. We have before us a motion. I need a motion.
So moved.
Support.
As presented.
Brian
Do we need to read it?
No,
and Stacy.
It was Lorraine.
I can read it.
that was Mike and Stacy.
Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek
Right.
Community Schools Board of Education accept the separation agreement and resignation as presented from Mr. William Chapman, effective October 11th, 2017. Any comments or questions?
No, not.
No.
Okay, so let's do a roll call. We did a motion. So, roll call. You'll do roll call?
Oh, for sure. How do we do it for, okay,
Score.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Stacy, yes, Mike,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Okay. We do have a member of the public in our audience. If she has anything to say to the board, she can state her name.
I'm all good.
Okay, all right.
Hurry.
Any other comments and questions before the board? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 9:52. Thank you, everybody.
And good luck with your son. Let us know how he is, okay?
Thank you, I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Well, let's stay in some prayers.
Take care of your family.
I will,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I'll be.
I know you do, but you know my motto.
I
Family
learned how to
first
play
always.
Super Mario on the original Nintendo today.
Nice.
So,
I wondered.
yeah, he
Video
was.
game heaven.
Yeah, he was. I know. He was
We lost
excited.
you.